So now, I'd now like to introduce Craig Hawes.
Right. Well, good evening, everyone. I were hoping to get a drink, actually, before I started. Bit of a bad throat. My name's Craig Hawes. I'm the director of Galaxy Telecoms and Networks, based in Bradford. Just listening to Keith there, I think, actually, the money's more in children's books than IT and telecoms, so I might be sort of a change of businesses, really. So, as I say, we're an IT and telecoms company based in Bradford. Shiraz asked me about 5 weeks ago now to do a bit of a talk to the YEN event. And I was sat there thinking, and I thought, well, obviously, again, IT, telecoms, blah, blah. So, what can I talk about? And as I was sat there, I had this dawning realisation that I've got this audience in front of me. As soon as I start talking about telephones, PCs, internet, I could see people edging towards the doors and just trying to escape. And once I'd locked the doors, anybody who were left in there had just been jumping out of windows and things. So what I've decided to do is talk about my experiences in the Air Force. I spent 12 years in the Air Force as a propulsion engineer, basically working on jet engines, and how what I've learned in the Air Force and how I applied it to starting and now run 3 businesses. Excuse me. So yeah, I'm running 3 businesses. I started 3 businesses, running 3 businesses. IT and telecoms company. I've got another IT company in Bradford. And because I've got 2 businesses in Bradford, the natural progression was to start an IT and telecoms company in Nigeria. So, which I can see around the room, lots of people have done that already. So it's just a few things I've learned from my experience in the Air Force. I'm not a business guru. I'm not some kind of expert on business. But so if there's any business gurus or whatever in the audience, if you keep your heckling to a quiet level or until the end, and then we can have a chat about things, and everything I've told everybody is probably wrong. A few things I've learned. Not very interesting really, but looking at discipline in the workplace. Now, by discipline, I don't mean that if you do something wrong, it's get down on the floor, do 50 press-ups, or go stand in a corner for 10 minutes because you've been naughty. It's your work ethic, really. Work ethic, teamwork, basic things such as like turning up to work on time, attendance, getting on with your co-workers, getting on with your staff, your managers, that kind of thing. So one of the things that I did realise when I started the business was time management. Now, in the Air Force, everything is laid out in documents and procedures and work instructions. So, as an engineer, if you're, fixing an aircraft, everything is documented down to the finest detail, and that's whether you're taking a 60-foot rotor blade off a Chinook or you're tightening up a tiny 1-inch screw to 4 Newton meters if you want to get, technical engineering wise. So that gave me, when I started the business, a good foundation that, and maybe it's been a little bit sort of anal here, but I started documenting everything I do. When I was sat there on my own in my office, listening to customers ringing up, taking calls, that kind of thing. I started documenting everything I do. Initially, just on pieces of paper. And then, obviously, being in IT, I thought, best buy some software, and then start selling it. So everything's documented, work procedures, just things like checklists, that kind of thing. And a lot of companies I go to, when we've got new customers, and you look at things like business continuity and disaster recovery, and succession policies as well. So basically, and without being morbid, as a business owner or as an employee or as a manager or whatever, what would happen to that business, whether it's yours or your employer, if you came into work and got knocked over by a bus? Would the business be able to function? Would somebody be able to pick up a piece of paper or look on a computer and say, yeah, we can carry on the business? If you're in charge of finance, do people know the details, the usernames and passwords for the bank account, for instance? And it's amazing how many companies we go to, and there's nothing like that in place. And really, it's just, again, it can be just a piece of paper or on a Word document, or whatever, what's best for you, really. On a personal level, documentation-wise, and again, I still maintain this now. When I was in the Air Force, we had a thing called a PDR, which is a personal development record. I think the Air Force was quite advanced with this kind of thing, and I guess in big companies they have these kind of things now. And it's just a folder, and it had things like your qualifications, what courses you'd done, awards, what you wanted to do or aspire to in the next 12 months. Just basically like a quick reference, just an A4 folder, pretty simple, just keep it up to date. Now, leading on from that, that's really good if you've got a CV as well. And again, even if you're running your own business or you're an employee, if you've got this, what's called a personal development record, and it only has to be 3 or 4 pages, it helps because then you can keep your CV up to date as well. These days, I don't think many people have a job for life, so keeping your CV up to date, you never know when there's going to be an opportunity. If you to get a better job offer, or you're looking for another job, or you've been, you could unfortunately be made redundant. It did happen to me. I got made redundant a year after I left the Air Force, but luckily I had my personal development record and I kept my CV up to date. So really it's just a bit of documentation. Just document everything. It's so easy to do it now. We use some software called Trello, completely free, and it's just like an electronic pinboard. You add lists to it, titles, you can drag and drop documents, spreadsheets, videos, everything really. It's a fantastic little bit of software called Trello, completely free. There is a business version, but we just use that for everything, for all the staff, and just keeping on top of things. So that's the sort of documentation side. One of the other big things I learned in the Air Force was about planning. Now, there's this phrase called planning with military precision. Now, I know there's somebody in the audience who's ex-army, so he's probably going to laugh when he says the Air Force actually planned anything, but we actually genuinely did. We didn't just sort of do things at random. But when the army, as an army guy looking in, they probably thought we did, because we did look pretty rubbish compared to the army from a planning and discipline point of view. And I remember we were out in Germany once, and we were travelling. Basically, we were based in a place called Larbrook, and we were travelling north to Denmark to go and exercise. So we had this convoy of about 30 vehicles, and the guy who was in charge was a Gengo junior engineering officer, just done about a year out of university, gone through RAF College Cranwell. He'd been put in charge of this convoy. So it's just trucks, Land Rovers, trailers, power sets, that kind of thing. Again, about 30 vehicles. So we're heading north up to Denmark, and at some point we lost half the convoy, so about 15 vehicles. So heading north, not a big problem. It happens sometimes with traffic. So we pulled over, stopped in on the autobahn, stopped at the services, and the Sengo, who's a senior engineering officer, was talking to the junior engineering officer, and he said, so where's the rest of this convoy then? And he's like, oh, that's fine, don't worry, sir. They're just behind us, following up, 10 minutes behind. They'll be pulling in 5 or 10 minutes, not a problem. Now, as he was saying that sentence, we looked across the autobahn, and the rest of the convoy was heading southward. So the Django just had this look on his face just drip white, and it wasn't sort of his finest moment really. But again, it goes down to planning. You know, there's software that you can use for planning. I'm quite old-fashioned actually. I write things down just with pen and paper. So daily tasks, I just write everything down, pen and paper, what I'm going to do during the day, and it just works for me. It's sort of horses for courses, really. The other thing, again, it's all sort of links with each other. Teamwork as well, which is a bit of a sort of, you know, everybody talks about teamwork and work ethics. So, again, a big thing in the military, it is teamwork. You're relying, you know, on your sort of buddies, your comrades, or whatever you want to call them, and that's something that, as a business owner, you've got to, you know, like instill in your staff, or if you're, you know, if you're an employee or whatever, and you've got to get on with your colleagues. One thing I did learn was never burn your bridges. Never leave a place on, you know, like in a bad, on a, you know, like basically in a bad way really, because the Air Force, we had at the time we had 55,000 people, personnel there, and it's incredible that throughout that 12 years, how many people you would meet. And that was, I mean, the Army, the Navy, there were probably a couple of 100,000, 250,000 people. And it's amazing throughout those years, the people you'd bump into again. Now, if you've left in a bad way, or you've not got on with somebody, then, okay, in the military, you just get on with it. But in a situation where, you know, like in this event where you're networking, for instance, then it's, you know, you just got to really sort of just get on with people. If you don't like somebody, that's fine, but you never know when you're going to see them again, and you never know where they're going to turn up, and potentially they could be your boss, or they could be a member of your staff. So that's another sort of thing I've learned and applied running a business. The last thing really is, and it's a bit of a strange one actually, but travel. Now, I'm going to say lucky. I'm not sure lucky is the right term, because again, I was sent to places, went to some fantastic places, North Africa, Australia, Southeast Asia, pretty much anywhere around the world. America, America's not that good really, but you can get 24/7 all-you-can-eat diners and stuff, and that's not so bad. But you know, I travel around a lot. I was really fortunate, and one of the businesses I actually opened up, as I mentioned before, was in Nigeria. Now, I guess the only reason I sort of went for that is it was a good opportunity to start a business, but I think looking at the sort of situation in Nigeria, it would put quite a few people off, which is understandable, the security situation, the troubles they've had over there. Everybody knows if you get an email from somebody in Nigeria, you're a bit sort of wary about it, that kind of thing, and business dealings. And the country's getting a lot better now. I've been there 4 or 5 times now. It's a fantastic place. But I don't think, without my experience of travel, I'd have considered going there and looking at business opportunities. So what I'd say is there's a lot of help and advice and information out there from things like, I don't know if it's called the Passport to Export anymore, but the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, you know, like the Leeds business side of things, and there's a lot of information where you can look beyond Leeds, Bradford, West Yorkshire, you know, nationally. You can look to markets in Europe, you know, in Africa, and there's a lot of opportunity out there if you're prepared to, you know, take a punt on it really, take a bit of a chance, and, you know, just sort of broaden your horizons a bit from a business point of view. So, yeah, in summary really, it's just it's probably pretty common sense, but plan everything, document everything, do a bit of travel, and just have a good work ethic. So that's all I've got to say, really. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Cheers.